Well, I think we've all heard the news by now that they shot and killed another person in Minneapolis. His name was Alex Preddy, and he was a US citizen who was a nurse and also a US Air Force veteran. This shit is really sad, and I don't think that they're gonna stop. And, you know, anyone making this about Trump is kind of like missing the plot because it's not about Trump. Politicians, the Democrats, who like to cosplay like they still care about human rights with ICE, even though they uh, didn't give one single shit or advocate for Palestine, really. I think that them making this all about Trump and not talking about the surveillance state as well as ICE's relationship with Israel are completely missing the point. Their analysis is pretty much useless because how many of these guys that are on our streets now killing Americans with complete impunity? They shot him, this guy, the nurse, like 12 times. They like jumped on him and shot him 12 times, I believe. How many of them were just in Israel slaughtering Palestinians with complete impunity? Like most of them, I mean, I don't know the numbers, but I know that a big chunk of them are former IOF. And I don't think IOF, Israeli Occupation Forces, is even cutting it now. That term is not even cutting it for me. It should be ITF, Israeli Terrorism Forces, because that's all that they are, and that's what has completely infiltrated the United States of America. I think that protests are great for all of this, but guys, we've been protesting for like 2.5 years at this point, and what has changed, honestly? I'm not saying that to like shit on protesters, but what's going on in Palestine is worse now than it's ever been. I mean, just it's these are the biggest human rights violations that have ever happened in our lifetime, I believe. We're not seeing any of those images now because they've killed all the journalists, because they won't let foreign press in, and they're just completely burying their evidence. And we're seeing that as they presented their Gaza peace board plan in at the World Economic Forum in Davos, where all the eugenicists and globalists meet up and realize that they are the same person. They literally, Jared Kushner outlined their Gaza peace board plans, and they're going to build on top of the ruins of Gaza and all the mass graves. And they outline in there that they will have housing for Palestinians. They call it workforce housing. This is where they're going to put the slaves. So people are still dying there. It doesn't make the news at all. But what I wanted to say is that what's going on in the US is getting a lot of press and a lot of news, but most people are not making the connection to Israel and how these guys are, how many of them were just committing egregious human rights violations in Palestine. They're not going to be held accountable. Why would they be held accountable? They weren't held accountable in Palestine for, we all watched what they did there. No one's been held accountable. So everything that they're doing in Palestine, they are doing in the United States, or will be doing in the United States. Like this is just the beginning for us. So protests are great, guys, but how many of us going to protests are still using Amazon? have not boycotted. Like, this is what is the most important part. We need to boycott. We need to put our money not into these major corporations that are fueling these war crimes and what we're seeing happening in the world that we can't stand and we feel like we have no control over. Protests are great, but it's literally like one strategy, and that's what I see being the only strategy, at least in New York City. They don't care that we protest. They give zero shits. They give zero shits. They don't care what we think. What they care about is their money. So the best thing that we can do is boycott. Boycott these companies that are complicit, and we need to find our community. And this is the other point about protesting. How many of us are just in the streets protesting but aren't spending the time to read and study? I mean, you could see it plain as day in what they are still trying to do in Iran. People buying into, the CIA NED narrative that they're force feeding us, that Iran needs to be freed by the Americans of all people and Israel. Like, how many people that were just protesting for the past 2.5 years for Palestine have bought into this narrative that the Americans and the Israelis are the ones that need to go free Iran. That's how we know that you don't read books. You don't know anything about history. So I would say protesting can be great, but it's not everything that we should be doing. It's one part of. There was an organization that I tried joining last year. I think I lasted like 2 months or something, but I got jaded very quickly because it seemed like everything was just about protesting and getting police permits to like march in the same circle and have signs. And when I wasn't like a real member yet. I was kind of in that I think I lasted like a couple months in their I don't know, orientation period, and the meetings that I went to, I don't know, like the other orientees slash the, I guess, leaders who were like legitimate members, it just seemed like they were all trying to speak in a way to, I don't know, like assert their intelligence or something. Like everyone just seemed to be trying to one up each other in how many, how in like smart they were and how great they could speak and how big of words they could use. And it was just like, I was like, these people, I don't know, it didn't have any like connection to like real life, it felt like. Also, the other thing was there was no talk about like BDS. How are you going to claim that you are an organization that's revolutionary and you guys are still fucking drinking Coca-Cola? Like, that's what? But going back to what we can do to actually defend ourselves in these times, especially against what's coming, because we must all know what's coming at this point. Like, for as much as many people in the United States didn't want to pay attention to what's been happening in Palestine, that's what's coming. And what they're planning on building with this, peace plan bullshit is a smart city. And this is what they want to do to all of us. Personally, I think that these major weather events, yeah, it of course has something to do with the actual climate and weather patterns, but like weather manipulation, think of how, first of all, think of how much money they make every time when they announce like these major weather events. Like all of us run to the store and like buy toilet paper. Anyways, but I mean, they want you out of the rural land. They want you out of that land. They want that land for themselves. I mean, think of everything that happened last year. All of those major weather, climate events, natural disasters. There's Hawaii, Los Angeles, Washington, Texas, North Carolina. Did I miss anything in the past year? Maybe there's another place that I'm missing, but yeah, and then what happens after that? Then that's the land grab. They take everything. And we're going to get pushed into these smart cities. This is Agenda 2030. Like they're moving fast now because like they have like less than 4 years now to get us into these smart cities. But the other part about what we can do to defend ourselves is like we need really strong bodies and minds, honestly. And it's hard in the United States, to be honest, because everything's fucking poisoned. All of our food has either been, genetically modified or is sprayed with pesticides, or all of the nutrients essentially have been taken out of it. Or, like, if you want to shop organic and actually try to get some nutrients in your food, but, the soil's been depleted, so it still doesn't compare to vegetables in Iran, for example. Even if you wanted to buy organic, strawberries are like $14 in the United States. It's pretty difficult if you don't have money. But like despite that, there are things that we can do. We can stop eating ultra processed foods, which is literal poisoning us and making us sick and stupid. And the other thing that we can do is the United States of America wants us to be as dumbed down and useless as possible. And one of the ways that they do this is with alcohol. They put alcohol everywhere. That's like the only social activity that is like normalized in the United States of America. It's like getting drunk. Why? Because they don't want you to have a brain. Like, alcohol is literal poison, and it's marketed in this country as if it's sexy and cool and it makes you be more fun and more intelligent. No. It's literal poison. It destroys every organ in your body. It makes you stupid. It makes you so you can't even think for yourself, so you can't accomplish anything, so all of your relationships are destroyed, and it destroys your body. It destroys your brain too. People forget that. So personally, I do not drink alcohol. I haven't drank alcohol in over 5 years at this point. It's not because I was an alcoholic. um although there is that in my family, but just work. I mean, I've never really liked alcohol. Like, that's not to say like, oh, I'll never have any like wine again in my life or anything like that, but it's just I don't like the way that it makes me feel. I don't like waking up the next morning and feeling like shit and not being able to get anything done or not have my brain work. Like, I want to protect my brain for real. Like, especially especially considering everything that they do to us already. You don't want to add to that. But all that to say is I really, for myself, and I hope for other people, that we need to really prioritize protecting our brains, because that's like this is the most important sovereignty that we have, right? To be able to think for ourselves, to be able to critically examine issues and be able to be an individual. They want to take that away from us. And one of those ways is with alcohol. They try to destroy our brain and our ability to think for ourselves in every possible way. Everything that we consume, everything that we drink, just like screen time and social media and these, violent images that they're constantly feeding us, not to mention, pornography, which most of it is child abuse material. And of course, not to mention like AI and chat GPT. They don't want us to think for ourselves. Don't contribute to that. I want to be aware of what's happening to me in my life and what's happening in the world. Like I really think that we are at a critical juncture here, and I think that I want to be awake for it because like what the fuck are they going to what else are they going to try to pull on us? And in the United States of America, like how many of us are on substances and just like totally fucking asleep, you know? What is it? Like at least 15-20% of Americans are on a psychiatric medication. How many more Americans use alcohol regularly? How many more Americans on top of that are using marijuana or other drugs regularly? We're all asleep. The other thing about alcohol is, especially as a woman, but really anyone, is that this is one of the main ways that mostly men sexually assault women is with alcohol. I mean, of course, you can become so inebriated that you lose consciousness and you don't have any, you don't know what's going on. You have no awareness at all about what could be happening to you if you're so inebriated that someone could do that to you. But the other thing is, drinking alcohol, like in a bar or any party or anything like this is one of the main ways that guys are able to drug you is with alcohol. They just slip something in your drink. And this is one of the main ways that it happens. When I was still working as a sexual assault forensic examiner, that was most of the cases that I saw. And in New York City, they don't consider that a sexual assault. You can look it up. You can look up that the district attorney, Alvin Bragg, literally sent out a memo explaining that sexual assault with alcohol, like if you were drinking alcohol and somebody drugged you, then that wasn't like a sexual assault because you willingly drank the alcohol. That's how they if that's how they're considering it in New York City, that's how they consider it in the entire country, by the way. So personally for me, like I don't that's another reason why it's like I want to know, I want to be conscious at all times. I mean, obviously when I'm sleeping, that's a different story, but I want to be fully aware of what's going on at all times because if you're not aware, that's when bad things could be happening to you, and bad things are happening more and more even in the United States of America. So I want to be awake. I want to be aware of what's happening. I don't want to be asleep. And so I think that we should all put down the substances, pick up a book, tap into community, and buckle up because 2026, like